I'm here with Jordan.
Zach Jordan.
Zach Jordan. Oh, you have your, okay, so Zach Jordan. Sorry about that.
No worries.
Social Media Marketing Conference, again,
Yes.
2019. And he's going to tell us about this interesting project that he's doing on Alzheimer's, a video. He's touring the country, promoting awareness, and just a lot of interesting things. What sounded like from the initial short conversation that we had. So let's do it again. Let's.
Watch my money grow, watch my money grow watch my money grow like a proud parent. Yeah, my money getting old and it's colder than the snow bunny. Happy getting money, honey.
What's the thing that brought you here?
Sure. Well, first, I've never been here before. I've obviously been a long-time listener, first time patron to the conference, listened to the podcast for years. So this was really an opportunity to see what the excitement was all about. And at the same time, we've been gearing up, my business partner Peter Shankwitz and I have been gearing up for this road trip, and it's the MyAlzheimers road trip. And essentially what we're doing is we're driving from Los Angeles on June 7th and ending up at the Penn Memory Center in Philadelphia on Friday, June 21st. We're stopping in 10 American cities. We're doing Facebook Lives in every city. We're working with different organizations and universities all across the United States. And we're capturing over 1,000 different videos, hundreds of stories, Alzheimer's stories, and essentially showing people the modern face of Alzheimer's, which everybody says, hey, it's Alzheimer's, it's an old person's disease. No, it's really not. We've got teenagers and we've got people from in their 80s and everybody in between who's actually impacted. And so we're showing all of these people. Our biggest demographic on social media is between the ages of 25 and 60. So this road trip is really going to show people the real face of the disease, and we'll be doing Facebook Lives featuring guests, and we're also partnered with the Penn Memory Center at the University of Pennsylvania because they looked at what we were doing and said, wait a minute, not only is the story really exciting and the ability to share all those stories for the community, but there's a scientific implication for all of that data and information. So the Penn Memory Center at University of Pennsylvania is working on different Alzheimer's treatments. They're working on ways to do diagnosis of the disease early. And so they're taking our stories and our information and our data from this video experience and from the road trip and applying that to a much larger project.
You did mention something really interesting on the technology side, and we're going to talk about it a little more in a little bit. I just wanted, as while we're on the topic, how did you get to be, like, what brought you to do this Alzheimer's? It's an awareness, right?
It's really twofold. So it's the awareness part of it to try to break the stigma, because there's still a stigma attached to it. People don't like to talk about it. And then secondarily, we want to equip the scientists with data and information, and we can do that through the form of story. So every time we sit down with someone, we'll ask them questions about their experience, and they could be a caregiver, they could be a brother or sister, they could be a high school student who's advocating and raising money.
So basically anyone that's related somehow,
anybody
one way or
who's
another.
Touched by it in any way, shape, or form.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly. And it's about just over 5 million people in the United States have it. Which is a pretty conservative number when you figure the 1-to-1 ratio. You've got the patient who has it plus the caregiver. That right there conservatively is like 10 million people.
So what's your background? Like what tell us about a little bit about that.
So my background is storytelling. It's working in television and new media. My business partner and I started a company, Joe Digital, back in 2008. One of our first clients was Microsoft. We made a bunch of content for the Live Earth concert, which took place on 7 different continents. We advised them on making content back when they were thinking about becoming a content-driven platform. We did a couple of award-winning series with them. And then we transitioned to working in television and digital. We designed digital strategies and contents for shows like American Idol, The Voice, So You Think You Can Dance, X Factor. And so our background is television, it's storytelling, it's digital, it's new media, and then obviously this story with Alzheimer's is personal because we had my father who was diagnosed. That kicked off this whole thing with a feature film that we made, and then we've basically applied our storytelling, our technology chops, and our experience in digital strategy, and are rolling it up into this project.
Okay, so it makes sense. And now you're touring the country promoting the feature.
Exactly. So
Okay.
yeah. The feature's on Amazon Prime right now. It's CARPE KILIMANJARO, an Alzheimer's story. And the screenings that we're going to do in every single city, 100% of those proceeds will go toward the local organization that we're working
Are you
with.
coming to New York, or is the Pennsylvania the closest that you're getting to the New York area?
We're not going to go to New York, but we're going to be in Forked River, New Jersey.
Fort River, New Jersey.
Yeah.
Okay. Be interesting to. I mean, if I have the time, I'll definitely see if I can come and check it out.
Yeah, well, look, the whole thing is going to be broadcast, not only the Facebook Live sessions that we'll do in each city, but we're going to be broadcasting from our phones, everywhere where we're able to share what's going on the road trip for 15 days. It's going to be nonstop, talking, showing different people, having different people share their experiences, all on social media, hashtag MyAlzRoadTrip.
MyAlz.
MyAlz, MYALZ, road trip.
Okay.
Hashtag MyAlzRoadTrip, yeah.
Okay. Is it live now?
It's,
Is
yeah,
it,
that
it's
hashtag
happening?
is live right now.
It's
There's
happening?
content being pushed right now. It's starting to drip out, but once we
Okay.
start to get into April, then we're kind of open the floodgates and really start to launch some content.
Okay. And you're here on this conference because what? Because you're trying to get some ideas on social media, or just meet with people and see what the industry is going,
It's
or what?
it's really all of the above, right?
Yeah.
So this is the destination for all things social media and
The
content
Super Bowl of
marketing.
social media.
It is the Super Bowl of social media. You
Yeah.
heard it here first, right? So yeah, this is a chance to meet everybody who's all, frankly, all from all over the world,
Yeah,
who's
yeah,
in this
true,
business, right?
true,
and
yeah.
and being able to share and being able to swap ideas.
Latest and greatest. It's
The latest and greatest. If you don't like it today, wait 5 minutes. It'll change. Don't worry.
Exactly. Okay. So what are you hoping to get out of it?
The conference?
Yeah.
Would love to meet some great people, specifically talking about anybody who's in the social media space who might want to work with us and work on the project itself as we move across the country. In all our major cities, we're going to be doing big social media pushes. Also on the live front, since we're doing a lot of Facebook Live. So, the more opportunity we have here to meet people who are in places like Nashville and Knoxville and Austin and Dallas and, New Jersey.
Is it like what's called now the popular word influencers?
Influencers.
People that will be sharing stuff on their accounts, or people that will be sharing through your account, just helping you, spread the word.
It's really both,
Yeah.
right? So it's, there are obviously localized influencers, but then there's also the opportunity to kind of cross-pollinate the content as we move across the
Really
country.
interesting. It's really interesting. Now, about that technology part, it was really interesting, and I didn't even know this thing is happening or exists. It makes sense with everything that's available, but you mentioned that you do an interview and then there's an AI that analyzes body movements, face features, movements, and little bits of information, gathers them, compiles them, and then gets information out to medical professionals. Can you talk about that a little bit? And that's related to the movie
That's
and all the
absolutely.
features and the videos that you've done. And that's, if I got it right, it's one of the reasons why the medical facilities and the medical researchers are interested in what you do, because you get to talk to a lot of people related in Alzheimer's, and there's the technology that can provide further, help into diagnosing it,
Yeah,
right?
extra data points. So the
Right.
way that it would work, two of the lead scientists and doctors that we're working with, Dr. Jason Karlowish and Dr. Jason Moore at the Penn Memory Center, University of Pennsylvania, Perelman School of Medicine. They have, and Jason Moore in particular, he's head of the bioinformatics department. So there's the video itself of the person, and they're talking about their experience as either a caregiver, as a patient themselves. And so not only is the story of that person really important and really relevant to scientific research, but there's also that extra layer of data that can be pulled from those videos, like we were talking about. Inflection of voice, eye movement, the way that they happen to be moving. And so all of that layer of information on top of the emotional layer that we're seeing in the video and their story, and then also you marry that up with medical records and things of that nature, all of that combined is a really powerful data set that people at Penn Medicine, the researchers and doctors, can be using to create new technologies for early diagnosis and hopefully eventually treatment and a cure.
So basically it adds to the database of information of Alzheimer's related, pretty much anything when it comes to body movements, right? And that's
Yeah.
mapping the face features over comparing them to medical records.
It's all of this combined.
Oh,
And
that's
so Dr. Moore at the Penn Memory Center, his team is working specifically in the world of artificial intelligence and data.
That's awesome,
and figuring out how all of those pieces, that before they were all disparately out there, and now
So
his
before they were
team-
just relying on whatever information gets to them, but
Right.
now they have the technical side to.
right.
Wow.
So the
all
stories, the videos service two parts of the problem. There's the care side, which is, hey, I have Alzheimer's or my family's dealing with it. What do? I want to see real people that look like me, talking about their experience. And then you've got the cure side, which is people at the Penn Memory Center who are actually working on and using these stories and these video and the data from those videos to help implement some sort of system that helps with early diagnosis and hopefully will help with the treatment.
Awesome.
It's really exciting. I mean, look, these researchers and doctors are really smart and so
sounds like
far along in terms of their understanding of how these different pieces work together. So it's really exciting to be partnered up with them and have this opportunity.
So how long you been doing this project? Like how long with the video and everything, the feature film, and it sounds like
It's
a lot
been a
of time.
few years,
Yeah.
and up to this point, it's been completely bootstrapped by my business partner and I. It's been this passion project, which is now starting to take this turn into being a much larger project because the potential is there to impact research and to impact Alzheimer's and quite frankly other areas of brain-related issues such as anxiety and depression and mental illness, and all of those elements are wrapped up in the Alzheimer's issue. So we started out with this film, and then it grew into this story project, and now that we've started this partnership with the Penn Memory Center, this is a jumping off point for a much larger project that we're undertaking, which it's a multi-phase project over the course of many years.
So how did you get the partnership with the Penn Memory? Did they reach out to you, or you reached out to them and told them what you're doing, and they got interested in it?
Yeah, great question. My business partner is a Penn grad, so that certainly helped. And then when we first started the project, we had reached out to them to ask them to come aboard in an advisory capacity. Just because we had, first of all, we had the contact with Penn and the relationship, given the fact that my business partner's an alumni, but they, that conversation grew over the course of a few years, and so now we're at that point where we're looking at this formal, plan to go about this multi-phase approach to how do we take story and marry it up with these technologies available and turn it into a system.
That's great. So what do you see this story going after, like when you're done with the trip, after all the lives are done, all the videos, the film has been, showcased in wherever theaters you're showcasing it. Once it's all said and done, where does that go? Like, what's the next stage of it?
Well, that's a great question. The next stage for us is really starting in earnest with building out this, what we're saying is a mega story platform that services the community as well as the scientific efforts. And so this road trip is simply a jumping off point for that much larger project. And so when we arrive in Philadelphia on June 21st, the longest day, and we've got over 1,000 videos, and we've been in all these American cities and screened the film, we hope that will fuel this much larger effort, which, by the way, there's over 50 million people worldwide today that are impacted by some form of dementia. So we're taking a microscopic piece of this story. There are millions of stories out there that are just Alzheimer's and dementia, and we think this story project can have an impact on that.
So you're thinking about building in sort of a community, maybe online or offline, or maybe both, and have like all those videos as in terms of people watching them and either getting advice, information, or just you know, just for knowing that they're not alone in what they're dealing with. Is that kind of like?
I think you hit the nail on the head. The issue there today is I feel like I'm dealing with this stuff all by myself and I'm alone. The biggest thing that we do in terms of that human wisdom in the form of these people in the videos is that they provide this sense to the world that, look, no matter who you are, no matter what your background is or your situation with this disease, there is somebody out there who's going through exactly the same situation you are, and chances are if we can connect you in a meaningful way, that will help you both.
So you would have a way of people connecting with each other.
Yes,
in
so
like
that
a social
so the
interaction?
much larger project involves that. The great part of it is the back end, right? The scientific part of it. So yes, there's this softer side, which is the care and the connection, but you're also servicing directly, you know, the scientific community and all the really smart people working on treatment and a cure, and so it's servicing both, you know, both parts of the issue.
Okay, that sounds like a very large project.
It's ambitious,
yeah,
no doubt.
I mean,
no doubt.
I'm not saying impossible, but it's definitely something. I mean, it's very also it's a very noble approach. I mean, you know, trying to get all that, put it in one place, get it out to people, connect people that need interaction. I think it's great. So where does, since we're in social media marketing world, where does social media fall into this, aside from, you said you're doing the Facebook lives and the YouTube lives and the hashtags and everything? Like what else is, like how else are you using social media to add to this, like to whether promote it or just to manage it? Is there anything you can say on that?
Yeah, great question. Well, I would say we would not be where we are today with the project had it not been for the social community that we have. We're on Facebook, we're on Twitter, we're on Instagram. All three of those platforms in very different ways have all connected the various people. For example, we work with a group called Authors, and they have 200 authors who've written books based on their personal experiences. They are all over the United States and Canada. We would have never been able to connect with any of those people had it not been for the messaging, the sharing, the interaction that goes on Twitter, on Instagram, on Facebook, the sharing of stories, the sharing of messaging, the Facebook groups, you know, the Instagram stories, all of that combined led to where we are today. And going forward, that's going to be very instrumental in not only helping to promote the road trip, but long after that in connecting people and you know, keeping those conversations going, because that's where the real, you know, connection is right now for a lot of people, because they don't have the human interaction, right?
So it's all online.
It's all online. But it's growing and becoming more meaningful. You know, Google Hangouts. You can interact with people on, you know, live,
like the Zoom and the live videos and chats and all that.
All of it now gives us these tools, and there is some layer of deeper connection there, but I don't think we should stop there, right? We could go much bigger and much broader.
Right.
But to your question, you know, social media is a really integral part of how we're trying to move the needle with respect to Alzheimer's awareness and care.
So what is the type of strategy that you guys use? Do you have someone that does the social media for you, or you guys do it on your own? You say it's all bootstrapped. So
right now, we're doing
it all, right?
We're doing it on our own. This has been, you know, we've been running Joe Digital.
And you still run the agency?
We still run Joe Digital,
alongside.
but we've been, you know, weaning off and moving much more into the MyAlzheimers Story Project, frankly, because it's taking most of our time, right?
Okay.
And the road trip in particular, we're just over 60 days away from leaving Los Angeles to begin the road trip. So all of that effort has been done in-house, and then we have a team of people that we reach out to for various parts of it. Once the road trip starts, then we'll have a team of probably 5 to 10 people. Some of them will come with us. Some of them will just stay on the ground and monitor. You know,
so you just send them content and they distribute it.
Right.
You'll have
right.
like a
so,
Dropbox folder or something.
Yeah. So there's obviously a lot of tools in there, right? So there's
Yeah.
the editorial calendar creation and management. There's
that was going to be my next question. Like, what tools would you use to coordinate? Like, it seems like a big coordination headache with people being on the road all the time, generating all that content with the interviews and the lives and everything else during the day. and then that content gets to get uploaded and pushed to all the networks. So what's the tools that I mean, you have the agency, you've done all the content and everything, and you've probably used or using a lot of those tools, but can you just speak a little bit on that? Like what's the process that you think would help you utilize that?
Right now we'll create the editorial calendar for, on a month-to-month basis,
Yeah.
right? And just like everybody does for a lot of different strategies in various verticals, and from there we'll use our, something like Hootsuite, where we'll dial in our content. It's not all done, it's not all programmed, some of it has to be manual. Once we start getting into the road trip situation where we're talking about live video, and live video actually being a big component on Facebook and on Instagram.
Yeah. You do YouTube?
We don't do YouTube, although, and this is part of my reason of being here, is one of our big objectives is to make sure that we maximize our impact for our Facebook Live broadcasts, right?
Yeah.
That means leading up to, during, and after. And part of my mission here is trying to find people and entities that can offer some guidance on that, because that alone right there could occupy one or two people to just focus on that effort alone.
It's basically a funnel that needs to be built for live event. So you promote it before, and then you promote it during, see what people are interacting, commenting, then get all those video views and follow up with them, either with an ad, paid ads, targeted to people that have interacted with it, or just take that content that has been, because the lives get recorded and they get to stay on your page. So you get that video and then you can promote it again with some money behind it,
right,
like a campaign, and then work off of all the audiences that you create based on video views, generate awareness that way, and also build your funnels and the warm audiences that engage with this thing. So it's definitely, there's strategies around that. People do that all the time for events. For example, you're promoting an event, there's going to be a live. Think about it as like a live webinar or a webinar funnel in general. You promote it before, you promote it during, if it's live, within the community, someone's managing the chat and all that. So so basically you concentrating on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter for now.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
Because that's where our most passionate audiences are.
We're getting a little noisy here, but you see that in the background, that's all people moving from the conference. So there's gonna be some noise. There's a DJ playing in the back. Over there's like a DJ booth. So just a side note here, because I noticed there's a lot going on. The microphones are picking that up. So.
But there's also, I think, and I think you could probably speak to it, that there's an automation element to that too, that could probably be implemented into that.
Yeah, you can automate. Again, with automation, the important part is the end goal, like how we met here and how we scheduled this interview through the chatbot that was created. There's an end goal for it to get people to schedule, and you saw there was a calendar and everything else. So that's how it starts. Basically, building automation in forms of chatbots is you start kind of like backwards. You start with an end in mind, and then you build forward based on what you're trying to achieve. So in your case, it can definitely be automated. A lot of things can be done. For example, like a daily tips, or maybe just daily content that gets pushed to people, and that all can be scheduled. Think about it like email drip campaigns, where you get your email list subscribers daily newsletter types.
Right.
But newsletters are now emails, and they don't really get opened a lot. Or with messenger bots, we're getting 80% open rates, and that's like average. You know, some people see 100%, and if it's an involved and engaged audience that has a specific interest in the topic that they've engaged with, in your case would be Alzheimer's, that's really niched and engaged audience. So I would think your open rates will be over 80. I mean, you probably get 80, 90 not, I wouldn't be surprised if you get 100% open rates on messages that you send out with even updates for, okay, daily, this is where we are, this is where lives are starting, or maybe even just push little bits of content in forms of like short interviews or short snippets of something. So yeah, this all can be automated and it can be running on the back end for you, just to aid everything else that you're doing, and then you do your other thing. It's just, it's one less thing to think about. In my case, with the scheduling, I created it, I let it out, I sent links to people, and that was it. I don't have to worry about constantly, getting messages. I would get a message when someone schedules it in my email, and all I have to do is add it to my Google Calendar.
Right.
And that's all.
Yeah, it's intuitive. It's you don't have to step into this
other
realm.
It happens within Messenger too, so people are used to interacting with it.
Right.
It's personal. There's no fraction. They don't have to be. Last night at the party at the Hyatt, I don't know were you there? Some girls, they have an app for like building video ads or some social media ads. So I had to scan a QR code that then took me to a website. Then they prompted me to download an app that then asked me to register for. And I was sitting there half an hour almost with them trying to, because it was interesting, and I was like, okay, let me see what it does. But now I have to download an app. What if my internet is not okay? I mean, what if I don't have connection?
Right, a lot of steps.
Yeah, so a lot of steps. So this is eliminated with the chatbots.
Right.
And I mean, there's other ways to automate too. You can have like email campaigns and text messages. There's a lot that can be done, but it's really interesting what you guys are doing. I mean, I'm amazed, especially with all the technology that lies behind it. It's crazy what people can do off of just simple video. And you mentioned, which is interesting actually, in China. Tell them about China. Like what happens in China?
Well, look, I'm not an expert by any means, but I know in China, they have a pretty thorough monitoring system, so that if you happen to be a citizen in China, chances are you're on camera, and not only are you on camera, but there might be bio information that's being recorded.
That TV show, Person of Interest, was it? Where they had all the cameras all over the world they can tap into at any point and find people.
Right.
Kind of seems like that. I mean, it's real. I mean, it's happening.
It's like a little bit scary.
It's happening. They're watching us, man. I'm telling you. So what else? What else around your project? Like, what about the agency? Like, where does that stand? Is that like on the back burner right now?
I mean, it's, at least for right now, our focus is the road trip, because it's taken all of our time and effort, and certainly our resources.
Yeah.
So, the thing about television and new media, certainly for television, there's the ebb and flow, right? So you wind down on a project. In our case, we've wrapped up some projects, and now we're entirely focused on getting the road trip. And then I think at the end of June, beginning of July, we have to reassess like what's going to happen. Is the MyAlzheimers project going to kick off in earnest? And at that point, then we'll have to make a decision. Are we going to go full time into that, or are we going to straddle both? Okay. We'll have to make that decision once we get there.
You'll see where the project is.
Exactly.
Kind of going
exactly.
For. Okay, yeah, that sounds interesting. So what kind of support and help are you looking for? Like like if someone wants to get involved, how do they do that?
Well, if someone wants to get involved, first, I mean, we're on Instagram, we're on Twitter, we're on Facebook. MyAlzheimers, and then hashtag MyAlzRoadTrip. Right now, we're looking for people who could help in the social media realm in terms of Nashville, Austin, Knoxville, Louisville, New Jersey, and then we're also looking for people in the world of live video. We've done live shows, 10, 12 camera live shoots around television. It's a very different animal than doing Facebook Live. And specifically to what we were talking about earlier with maximizing, the engagement and making sure that on the back end of that, we give life to that live broadcast well beyond, the actual show.
Yeah, because you have to kind of get the best out of this video that you're doing. I mean, it doesn't end with the live. It pretty much starts with it. I mean, you shoot the live.
And as you pointed out, these groups, the Alzheimer's groups within Facebook are pretty passionate, And so if you're able to, take that link in the show, the live show, and then it lives on, through those different
Are
groups.
you part of those groups?
Yeah, we are.
Those?
Yeah, we're connected.
Yeah. Is there a Facebook page for the project?
Yeah, it's MyAlzheimers. So on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, it's MyAlzheimers.
How many followers you got on
I think we got just over 1,000 right now.
Yeah.
So but we're growing. I would say that the numbers, it's really about our engagement, right? And the fact that we have a pretty engaged audience, not only in the digital world, but also in terms of the experiential, which is going on the road, doing the face-to-face, and then tying those two things together. I think that's what is the other unique aspect to the project, right? Because we're taking the best of the digital interaction and marrying it up with boots on the ground, real face-to-face, real people.
So you're not selling anything. You're not selling anything to the audiences. You want them to watch and engage with the content.
That's right.
So what would you do with that audience once you have it? Because as you may know, you can do audiences based on video engagements, right? So let's say you're in those groups for Alzheimer's. You have a video, whether it's live or uploaded onto your page, then you share that link from your page onto that group for people to watch. You can then create audiences of anyone who's seen that video for a certain amount of time, and you pick the amount of time, whether it's 3, 5 seconds, 25% of the video, whatever. Facebook gives you the option. So let's say you create audiences of people that have seen that video for more than, say, 50%. That would be a pretty good warm audience, engaged for them to stay 50% of it. What's the goal for that audience? Like you would send ads to them, because you would have the option to, if you have them as an audience, custom audience on Facebook. Like you would send ads to them promoting screenings of the video, of the feature.
To be honest, we haven't thought that through. It's not really an objective for us to sell them anything. For us, it's about building up a community large enough so that once our project takes hold and we start the multi-phase project with the Penn Memory Center, that we have built up this audience large enough so that we could make an impact from the scientific and story part of it. In terms of selling anything, we're not.
That's what I was saying. Yeah, you don't really sell them anything.
No.
So there's no sales pitch in this, right? So there's no sales. There's no pushing of products.
We're just looking for passionately engaged people who can get the word out about Alzheimer's and are willing to share their story.
Right. So basically, you're building a community. Right now. So you.
Sorry, 1 second.
Your battery out?
I just wanted to make sure I had the. Okay, it's 1 o'clock. All right, we're good.
So you're building a community, and you're growing that community. You say you're going to have the social aspect of it. Is that going to be like a website somewhere that you would build with that social interaction function to it, where people can, that community that you're building is then going to be taken to that website where they can interact? Or is it just going to be living somewhere in place like a Facebook group, for example, where people can just interact there?
Well, we envision a much larger platform project that will exist on its own outside of.
Are there platforms now that are similar? Like, is there anything?
Not in this regard, because we have something that's very specific to Alzheimer's and dementia.
Okay.
From the story perspective and the social perspective, but also from the scientific perspective. So we've got the 3 layers and that's kind of the unique angle to this, and that's why, we've kind of looked around and it doesn't make sense to cobble together different things, especially because, we're also talking about medical, right? And I'm not an expert on and don't claim to be in terms of medical data and information. So because we're involved with a medical project where there's medical information and data, and we're working with an organization, a scientific organization, everything has to be by the book, and you have to go by very strict guidelines in terms of regulations about how we actually are using the information. And so I think part of that pitch to people is, look, you're participating in this community. It's not only giving you great support, but by the way, all of this interaction and engagement is also helping science, right?
So you asking people for specific information when they, at what point you ask them to give you that information?
Well, we're asking them when we do the questions, right? So we'll sit down with somebody. For example, we'll sit down and we'll do an interview with them, and we have our layer of questions, and those questions are all based on what the Alzheimer's community is really wanting to know, whether it's about long-term care, whether it's about, hey, what do I do when my mother stands up all night long and won't turn off the light or is agitated. Things like that, we ask those questions, but then there's another layer to that, which is we engage the research team at the Penn Memory Center, and we say, okay, we're interviewing a woman, she's 35 years old, she's a caregiver. We're interviewing a patient who's 51, has early onset. From a scientific perspective, what are those key questions that we need to factor in? So we're taking the civilian information, right? The rudimentary information about a person experiencing the disease, matching it with the scientific information and what they're interested in, and putting it together, and then on a just a simple Q&A, that provides a lot of base layer information. And then from there, of course, depending on the participant, as we were talking about earlier, that layer of information is then matched with the medical records. And so for that type of information, we have to go through a very
strict regulations.
Very strict regulations, and you have to have abide by all the guidelines in terms of that stable of people. So that's a slightly different animal than just engaging someone for
storing all
Q&A.
those records and what do you do and how you manage it.
Which is why it's necessary to have an institution partnered with us, because we're not in the business of just building a social video site for Alzheimer's. We're really setting out to do something that will make an impact for the research department, and that means going through a much more rigorous process to make that happen and loop in the necessary partners to do so.
So it all started like a passion project with few videos, then a feature, now a road trip, then the hospital. Is it a hospital or is it a research center?
They're building a pretty impressive hospital in Philadelphia right now.
The Penn Philadelphia Hospital and Research Center, and then who knows? Then the community, then the networking part, and then the medicals, and then a Nobel Peace Prize for bringing Alzheimer recognition or early detections, and who knows? I mean, it's great. I mean, I love it.
I think if we got a treatment, and if we found a cure, that would achieve the goal that all of us are working toward. Because here's the bottom line too. Alzheimer's is so layered and it's so complicated. There is no singular organization that is going to be the silver bullet for this. It is so layered, and there are so many complicated issues related to the disease.
I'm not familiar with it, but as far as I know, there's also not just one type. There's like multiple different
there's dementia,
types
which is the umbrella issue, and then there are many different types of dementia. Alzheimer's is the most popular, most common type of dementia.
So it has to be it's not going to be one single cure that's going to be, okay, this is it and it's done. It's going to have to be for each of those different types and levels.
Because those different pathologies affect the brain in different ways, right? So as you point out, they're going to be, those treatments need to be, customized. So, I mean, look,
how far is the research on that? Like, is there like any hope for getting cure for it anytime soon?
Look, my father passed away in 2012. We're in 2019. All of the clinical trials that have happened between 2012 and 2019 have failed. There is no viable treatment. There is no way to cure the disease.
To this day, there is no.
So we are still trying to find out. First of all, we're trying to figure out exactly what causes it, because there are many theories. There are amazing technologies to diagnose. It used to be that you had to wait until the patient died to do an analysis of the brain tissue to find out if they had Alzheimer's and to what degree.
Yeah.
Now they're able to diagnose much earlier with various testing, but we still do not have any viable treatment as a way. It is a death sentence. When you get Alzheimer's, when you are diagnosed with it, that is the beginning of the end, unfortunately. Now there are many good years, but I think we have to be very frank and blunt about the fact that we do not yet have a treatment. But here's the silver lining. Polio, cancer, and AIDS, every time that we have combined public policy with healthcare in the government sector and in the private sector, we've been able to address those issues, and we've either cured or produced really successful treatments for those major diseases. There's no doubt that that will happen with Alzheimer's. What we lack is funding. Funding for enough research to happen, and the lack of funding is a direct result of the stigma still being in place. And the way to destroy that stigma is for people to talk openly about the disease, the way that we talked about cancer and the way that we talked about AIDS, right? Once we start doing that on a large, in a significant way, then the floodgates will start to open in terms of research, and we will find a treatment.
So the main goal for your project now is just to try and break that stigma that you mentioned, just to put it out in the wild,
yes.
Show people, talk about it, have discussions, live videos, social media, the powerful networks that exist nowadays. I mean, back 10, 15 years ago, you would basically have to call people on the phone and, oh, you want to hear about Alzheimer's.
Right.
Now you can just tell them on, oh, there's a video on social media.
That's right.
So.